It is 6:30 p.m. on December 11th, 2024, and I hereby call the regular meeting of the Woodcreek City Council to order. Please rise, if you will, for a moment of silence and remain standing for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Mr. Burton, would you do the honors to call the roll?
Council member Mr. Richardson.
Yeah.
Council member Russell Scott.
Present.
Council member Linnea Bailey.
Here.
Council member Chris Grummert.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Hines.
Here.
All accounted for, you have quorum.
And me.
And Jeff Rasco, are you here?
And especially welcome to Russell Scott, newly elected, newly sworn in, and our two re-elected members of the council. Yeah, very well. Yeah.
I would just like to point out that we're very color coordinated tonight,
Yeah.
even in our seating.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
On the agenda.
Strike that from the minutes. Okay, public comments, there are no public, we don't have any, we didn't have any written in that I was aware of. So that will bring us to the consent calendar.
I move to approve the 2025 holiday calendar for the city of Woodcreek.
I second.
All right, all in favor, please just raise your hand.
Aye.
Unanimous. And our report from officers and council liaisons, first from the infrastructure and mobility panel, Councilmember Bailey.
Yes, the only thing that the infrastructure mobility panel was asking is that, and it's on the agenda later. There's a motion for the city council to direct the I&M panel to review any drainage reports from Freelancer before the final report is submitted to council.
All right, that'll be back on the agenda.
Yes.
All right, planning and zoning, Councilmember Grummert.
Thank you. At the P&Z's November 6th meeting, they voted to recommend to council that the ordinance that covers planning and zoning membership be adjusted to reduce the amount of members to 5. They also recommended that any actionable items that are directed to P&Z by council should be explicitly detailed in an input form. Their goal with this is to have clear tracking, much like a ticket system, so that issues are not lost in transferring from body to body.
Thank you. Mr. Burton, your report?
We have the sheriff's report in the packet. They're all busy.
I've got a kid I want them to look at.
The monthly financials, there's, one thing that was brought to my attention by several people, that I need to do a better job of redacting some information before we post it in the packet. Also, as far as catching up fund view, spoke with Veronica today, we're getting close. The issue is that some of the accounts that was set up are not netting correctly, so when they get coded, they're not going to the right place. And when you try to make a corrected entry, it will not let it happen. So Mike and one of their guys and Veronica are working with FundView, which should be hopefully resolved pretty quick. And then she was also having trouble getting some information from ABIP, the auditors, which I think we resolved this afternoon. And so we're also setting some procedures for us for when we find some correcting entries that need to be done. I found several, so we'll go over them. Really not a whole lot of
I have some on
yes.
financials.
okay,
And I just have a whole lot of questions. So it may be that I need to meet
that would probably be best.
with you later,
We
but the primary questions are, who codes the invoices? Is that our accountant?
Tappy codes it when it gets put into fund view. And there have been, we have found, due to, in some cases, we had three, contract labor accounts. And and one only had money in it, so they were getting coded wrong, so we've caught the problem. We found out,
Okay.
figure out what the problem is, and it'll be corrected moving forward.
And that was a lot of it. It was
Yeah.
a lot of, just, there was coding into categories that there was no budget for, but there was a matching budget item that it could have been
Right,
coded.
so that goes back to the procedures that we're put in place to
Right.
get those corrected. They've been identified, I don't know, I'll be working with Veronica to get those done.
Okay.
They should be at a minimum moving forward. Now that we've figured out a couple of simple things, so. but-
Also, there's one particular, in your report on, the account balances, it's showing that we, in a year to date, made $100,000 in interest. And just even averaging that out, we should be showing about 18,000 in interest in this first 2 quarters. We're not getting interest recorded. And there's a simple spot on that report where it just breaks down and says interest to date. So I just want to point out that
Right.
we should,
Part of that.
somehow we're not getting that interest recorded.
Right, and that's one of the things that we're working with Veronica on, because there was questions on us, on Tappy entering it, and there was some of them weren't getting entered because we had questions, those are getting cleared up. And then also some of the beginning balances, that was the problem with ABIP, that hopefully got resolved today, so that hopefully, by next month's meeting, we should be pretty dang close, I hope.
So Lynette, you're saying that the interest that comes through on the Texas class statement isn't being recorded properly in the fund view?
Yes, it shows very clearly
Yeah,
income earned per month
right,
and the total,
right.
and it actually should be a simple,
But then you're saying that that's just not getting into the fund view?
it's just not getting it fun.
Okay,
But
right.
I mean,
That's-
this is.
We still have track of it, it's
We
just
still
not.
have
Yeah,
track.
yeah, it's just, we're just not updating our fund view.
Veronica's making those transactions, and that's part of the problem that she called it netting. They're not netting out properly because of the way it was set up.
Okay.
And that's some of the issues that they're,
She does the reconciliation of the fund view account, right? I mean,
yes,
the fund view versus, Texas class,
right.
and the fund view.
She'll be doing all,
So that's her.
she does the reconciliation of fund view and, along with all the accounts that go with that.
Do we have a determination of when we'll be off of one system and fully on the fund view?
We are fully on the fund view. It's just
No.
in the when it was set up incorrectly. And so that's part of the problem. They're making the corrections to get all that done.
So you think by the end of the first quarter?
I'm hoping about,
Next.
hopefully next month.
Okay.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
It's chipping away at all the problems. Fix one problem, then it pops another one.
Right,
And once,
I'm very familiar with it.
yeah, so Mike, along with one of his colleagues in Veronica, they have some meetings set up with FundView. Now that there's some better understanding of what's happening, they couldn't figure out what was happening. Now they've got it kind of isolated, and now it's how to fix it.
Okay.
So it should
I
be.
found what I was looking for. Thank you for sending the balance sheet.
Yeah.
This is what it was in July, and I checked a lot of things.
Mhm.
These red marks are what still need to be corrected. So it's quite a few things, we can track them
Mhm.
and they're definable, but we still are a ways from having a balance sheet.
Yeah, so if you can sit down with Jim with
Yes,
that, and then you can get it to Veronica,
Right. That's,
and the team over there to focus.
I have a lot of it, it's, especially if we have additional ones, let's sit down like we did
Yeah,
a couple
yeah.
months ago. And
Good,
because the
okay.
the rest of this week, next week, I'm gonna be compiling as much information. Because we weren't dumping all this information on Veronica at the onset,
Okay.
kind of holding it back, let her get her feet wet, and now we're to the point that,
And if we can keep up with this,
Right.
it's easier.
right, once
Yeah, once we get it straightened out.
it's done, it should be done. So, you know, for example, just when we get into one of the other action items like Prozac recoding of funds, that's the same thing. We've got to get that over to her. That's just one example of one thing to be recoded. So I've got a better handle on what she needs, and we're working on the procedures to make that happen and to be better.
And I have a question for, I just think it's for staff. But I've been hearing from a lot of citizens, and I think maybe all of us have, they have concerns about the speed cushions, and they wonder if we
Off
get
topic,
some out.
off
the
We
agenda.
can't do it. Okay, all right. And we wrote letter. All right,
Going to code enforcement, we really didn't have a lot to do. I need to get with Stan on one of our kind of abandoned house. I got some new information, word of mouth, so I'll get with you to follow up on that and see if there's something we can do.
what about 16 Country Lane, where they destroyed the pavement?
That's one of the discussions we need to have.
But we're off, we gotta stick to the.
So,
Okay.
just city hall updates, Deerfield, the east-west section was paved, yesterday. And the last 2 days. I also they had some leftover material, so I authorized them to put some more in the circle of where the east-west meets. The elbow, so to speak, because that was really, really bad drainage issue there. So I authorized them to do that additional work. There's still some touch-up work to do on there. I drove it, it was kind of bumpy. And our Tom, our engineer, was in town yesterday, and he had the same experience, so they're making that correction. For those that didn't know, we have the rainwater system installed at the shed in the back. It's up and, well, I need to, now that we've had some rain, I need to have them back and fire up the system. The rainwater collection system at the gazebo, we are waiting on the tank to be built. He said it would be a few weeks, so it would probably be towards the end of the year before the tank is ready. But they do have the gutters up for it, so then it's just a matter of installing the tank and doing that. So that's almost done. Lightning strike claim, we received the payment this week, so that's done, and we'll pay back on that. Roofers will be starting on City Hall and gazebo the week of the 13th, January 13th. It was dark when you got here, but they stayed in the handrails today up front. They're gonna come back tomorrow and do it and finish up, do a final coat. If you've gone in the front entrance, you've seen that we've got their decorations up, Christmas decorations. And got that up at the park or triangle entrance.
Who did the triangle?
Ruth Ann and Jane Little.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they did the gazebo, and then our contractor did along with help from Sean and some direction from the parks people, where to put stuff at the entrance and the deer at the triangle. So, and then just for your information, our office administrator, office admin, she received a performance review recently. As you could probably guess, it was a pretty good one. She's gone above and beyond, and I'll be giving her a merit increase again in the year. So, and that's it. That's all I got.
Nate? Question?
Questions, sir?
Thank you, Jim.
Oh, I have one more question.
Yes.
For on the sheriff's report, how I noticed this month there was no citations given.
Right.
Have we ever asked him to like? maybe
Well,
get on a
we
few-
talked about, and he uses, one, are they a resident? How bad is it? Does he recognize them? You know, there's 3 different ones, so
Repeat.
if it's a repeat, you know, we tell them, you know, if they deserve one, give them one, but we also just make things slow down. And so,
Yeah, I was thinking.
it's, you know, especially I forget his name, the big guy. He's,
Oh, the sheriff.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure, he'll hammer me. And so.
I'm scared of the heck out of it.
Yeah, and he also he drives around more than the other two. The other ones drive around and they also sit strategically in places, so. Yeah, we encourage them to do it when needed but, you know, you just, they are, if they're not a resident and they're running that, then we'd rather,
I wish we had data points on what those speeds were.
yeah.
You know, is it like 28 or is it 45 or is it 60 or what is
Do
it?
they record that?
They don't put it on the.
Probably on a
They
ticket.
just do the numbers,
Yeah.
be on the ticket.
So the next time you see Brent Pulley, thank him.
Yeah.
Because he really pushed this.
Yeah,
But,
It's been a
I
good
think,
program for
good
us.
question.
I'd have to revisit the report, but I think the majority of them are running the stop sign, and it's the triangle
Yep,
every time.
every time.
So, so they, yeah, that's, so I'll make that request again. Tag them, they need to be tagged.
Just curious.
Item number 5 is discuss and take appropriate action on the appointment of Mayor Pro Tem for the city of Woodcreek for the upcoming year.
I would like to move to recommend that we appoint Chris Grummert for Mayor Pro Tem for the city of Woodcreek.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bailey. Any discussion? Okay, y'all switch chairs.
It's been an honor to serve for the past year, and I'm so grateful that council selected me. And I would like to pass the torch for the next year. And I kind of like that idea of all of us sort of being trained up for the leading roles and supporting roles, and everybody learning all the city process. And honestly, Chris Grummert has served on council the same amount of time as me, and he's been like my right hand, and he's up here all the time as well. So I don't think we could ask for better if he's willing.
If I may, I couldn't be happier, you know, I'd be happy with any of these, you know, sitting over here, but this one over here on my right hand has been absolutely amazing. And even before she was Mayor Pro Tem, she was really amazing, you know, getting things done. I mean, I just hate to think of where we would have been, you know, had we not had Deborah and everyone else's cooperation in getting through some, you know, pretty hairy times. And then we look at now, and, you know, the council we have, and the staff we have, and the contractors we have, and the help we have, I mean, we are in pretty damn good shape. And a lot of the reason is this person right here, but also this one and this one and this one. So I can't wait to work with you this year. I know you'll be fantastic, and I know you're not going anywhere. So that makes us happy, but thank you for your service and thank you for your upcoming service.
Thank you, Deborah, and congratulations, Chris.
Well,
We have to vote, but.
Yeah.
so I have a question just for the city attorney. I don't feel comfortable voting for myself. Am I allowed to abstain or am I not?
You are allowed to abstain, yes.
All right, so all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Mr. Grummert.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Speech, no.
That's fantastic news. Fantastic news. Okay, our next item is to discuss and take possible action to authorize the city administrator to bring back to council a recommendation including proposed employment agreement for appointment and hiring of a city secretary.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we go into executive session pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code Personnel Matters.
I second.
All right. Second required vote, is that?
No.
I didn't think so.
Oh,
All right,
We just
so,
call it.
so,
Just
You can pause and turn the mic off.
right, I'm gonna,
Go out and open.
all right, it is 7:05, coming out of, closed meeting. And, have a motion?
Mr. Burton, would you make your recommendation? An open meeting?
Right now,
Yes.
I would like to recommend Carrie Ledcatcher for the position of city secretary.
All right, I move that we direct Stan Springerly to draft a resolution for the formal appointment of the position of city secretary based on the recommendation of Jim Burton for the city of Woodcreek in special session next week.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Vote unanimous. Thank you very much. Item number 7, discuss and take possible action to engage Ted Gardner for an initial period of 3 months to assist with public information, public relations efforts for the city of Woodcreek with fees not to exceed $3,000 funded from the salaries budget.
I move that we engage Ted Gardner for an initial period of 3 months to assist with public relations and information efforts for the city of Woodcreek with fees not to exceed $3,000 funded from the salaries budget.
I second.
Led by Mr. Mayor Pro Tempore Grummert.
No.
Not yet, huh? Too soon. Yes,
I'd like to
go ahead.
make an amendment that that this not be taken from salaries budget, but that it be taken from community relations where we have a $13,000 budgeted amount for the year. And we have not tapped but $150 in that. It is very, sorry,
I'll second.
I want to discuss that, in our,
What?
There's no discussion, it's an amendment.
So what?
You can continue discussing the item. But you can also call the vote if you want on that specific item, if you want, that amendment.
I'd like to discuss why I feel you can't intermingle salaries accounts and, consultant accounts. It really gets wormy.
Okay,
So,
if I may, because we looked at various places where it might come from since it wasn't previously budgeted. And, because we had a lapse in paying salaries, there was to be, a predicted, but we have paid contractors out of the salary budget in the past, John Rollins being one. And so it's okay, that makes sense. We'll just, since we're not gonna spend that money, we can use it that way. So that's where it came from. It doesn't really matter to me where it comes from, as long as it's accountable.
secondarily, on our year-to-date, see, I got the revenue and expense report. Year-to-date in salaries, we've spent $31,623 so far. And in our prior year, at this point in time, we spent $29,000. So often salaries are backloaded, so we really don't have a lot of spare in salaries.
All right, so there's,
Could I have the amendment reread, whoever's writing the minutes?
The amendment is to change the budget line item from salaries to community relations.
all right, fair to vote on the amendment? All right. All in favor of the amendment to change the funding source from salaries to community relations, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous, passes. So, we're prepared to vote the main motion. All right, all in favor of the main motion, to engage Ted Gardner for an initial period of 3 months to assist with public relations information efforts for the city of Woodcreek with fees not to exceed $3,000 funded from the community relations budget. It's the amendment. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And I personally appreciate that very much, but, I think I'm going to work as, I put a lot of information in the cover sheets I don't have to really explain, but I'm gonna work really hard in the next 3 months. Number 8, Discuss and take possible action on the report from the Parks and Recreation Board to approve schedule changes to the original POSAC proposal expenditures today and send to Hayes County for final approval.
I will move to, accept the report from the Parks and Recreation Board to approve a schedule of changes to the original POSAC proposal expenditures to date and send to Hayes County for final approval.
I'll second.
All right, this is like wrapping up the loose ends. The county, has said, whatever, what to do is okay, but, we want a recording of it. So this is the recording of it. Mayor Pro Tem Grummert and former Mayor Pro Tem Hines, were the subcommittee, so we got the numbers together and cleaned some things out. We cleaned up the, these numbers, so we got some accurate figures. This is what we want to take to Commissioner Shell and the county attorney so they can sign off. So, yes, sir.
On August 28th, council moved to stop all spending of POSAC funds until the county has seen and approved the new site plans that reflect the changes made to the plans that were originally approved, and that council sees and approves these plans before being sent to the county, and a separate breakdown of park improvement spending that relates to those things that were not part of the originally approved county plans. That was a quote. At the same meeting, council approved moving forward with park site plans and improvements that have no cost. I do not see the fact that the site plans for our parks that reflect the changes made to what was originally approved in order to send that package to the county for reapproval. Instead, what is being presented to council is a site plan for Augusta Park that slips in approval of the wish list elements that council has not approved before, and in fact, council asked parks to wait on moving forward with these elements until we know what the county is willing to approve or not when using the POSAC grant. The other elements not made clear here are with the site plans that council has asked for is where are the site plans for Creekside Park and the Triangle that shows their changes made. If those plans were being presented to council, we would see that some of the ADA compliance elements would be missing, as they have not yet been addressed or installed. But were to be installed using POSAC funds. And given the fact that very little is left in the POSAC funds budget, I am unsure how these ADA elements can be addressed using POSAC funds, but instead the city will need to find other city funds to address these ADA elements. The standard I am looking for with these site plans that need to be sent to the county is that they at least rise to the level of the plans first submitted. We should be taking the same care in asking for approval of the changes that were already made using POSAC funds, as we did when we originally asked for the POSAC grant. The agreement the city has with the county actually requires that any changes made to the original plans were to be approved before they were implemented. So we are at a disadvantage in that the city did not abide by that part of the agreement. And as much as there are those willing to believe that the process will be easy to get this approval, I am more conservative in my approach in that I do not want to assume county approval, but instead I take the position that we should be making the effort to present the most convincing case as to why these changes were made in the first place. Again, the agreement of the city with the county regarding the POSAC grant, the county is under no obligation to approve the changes already made, and actually states that any such changes would be the city's responsibility to fund, which might be the result if they do not approve these changes. Nobody here should want such an outcome. I certainly don't. And we should be willing to take the effort to ensure that that does not happen. We should be putting forward our best case. I amend that this is sent back to Parks and that they work to provide council with what we have asked for, which is new site plans of changes made to city parks and the Triangle using POSAC funds that clearly represents what has already been done using POSAC money and leaves out any improvements that was funded using other city funds or any future improvements that have not yet approved or implemented.
Oh, second.
Thank you. In that amendment, part of the plan on Augusta Park also shows things that city funded. It wasn't POSAC funded, so it might look as though when it goes to the county's going, oh, we're gonna approve this. It's like, well, no, we paid for that ourselves out of city funding. So that was why I put that part into the amendment.
And we've taken some steps already, Chris, to start separating that with the new spreadsheet that we've approved.
Yes, actually, we're not suggesting that any POSAC money, additional money be spent. That's not what this says. That's not what this particular item is. What this item is, okay, so do we have all the information together that, has happened, as part of the POSAC grant and funding? Okay, then there were some changes made. Here's what those changes were that were not approved by the county. County, will you review these? If there's any questions or issues, let us know if this is not, so there's.
Can I say why I think there's a confusion here?
Mhm.
It's because of the attachments in the packet and the way it's outlined. So right now, in looking at the packet, I would have to agree with now Mayor Pro Tempore Grummert that based on what's in the packet attached to this item, it has a site plan showing their wish list items, not a site plan showing changes. And it includes the wish list items right below it. I believe those attachments would have been better placed on the following item, which one of them is duplicated there, but the site plan is not. So I think we need to focus on clearing up what exactly is being sent to POSAC. Because based on what's in the packet, it is a little, like the sequencing of it is.
Yeah, it has been difficult because, Parks has been, I've been trying to serve as liaison to Parks, as you know. Parks has been struggling with this now for quite a while, because they've had bad information. We've tried to straighten it out. And they're just frustrated. They just said, we just want to be done. We just want to be done. And now, Ruth Ann has said that she plans to step down, so she's not gonna chair it anymore. There's gonna be some things going on. I'd rather, if at all possible, I would rather take it out of Park's hands. Put the package together, because also we lose our commissioner in a few weeks. I was hoping to be able to get this one way or another to Commissioner Shell before he leaves. Because Commissioner Hammers doesn't know anything about it. And Commissioner Shell is the one that says, it's no problem, just bring it back to us, we'll send it to the attorney, they'll review it, they'll come back and say, what's needed, or it's fine, or whatever. But I'm just trying to get it to the county, one way or another.
I think, first we've got to decide on this amendment, which says to send it back to Parks. And based on your request, we could, as council, decide to vote it down. The actual motion does not specify this site plan that's in the packet or any of that. You could amend to include a redrawn site plan. Because that's the only thing lacking out of the motion. The motion is the schedule of changes to the original POSAC proposal, expenditures to date, and that's it, which is what we have ready and prepared, ready to go. The only thing missing is an updated site plan.
Which is
So-
what council asked for previously.
I understand. So I'm asking that council vote down the amendment that we have on the board and seconded, because it sends it back to Parks. And then we would issue a new amendment to add new site plans, just visual drawings, and we can ask that somebody do that. That's not Parks. That has, you know what I mean? The ability to produce that in the next week. Is that okay with it? Do y'all understand what's
How does
happening?
the timing work so that we can get it to Launchell? If we vote this down, does it have to come back to?
No,
council?
we're not voting it down. I'm talking about the one amendment we have on the books where it says send it back to Parks for new site plans.
Okay,
Because That's the only part of the packet we're lacking at this point in time, is a site plan to visually represent the changes that we have made,
So we're voting down the amendment, nothing.
if y'all don't mind.
Any other questions on that?
I just want to make sure I'm clear on it, since I'm gonna be sitting on that board. And I agree with what you're saying, Councilman Grummert. I think that, you know, they are lacking site plans for the other parks, as well as an updated site plan for Augusta, which is where most of the expenditures of the gazebo went so far, lately, so. Is what we're recommending is that we send this back, or that we ask for a new site plan?
So the amendment on the table is to send it back to Parks for new site plans, showing the changes already done, leaving out whatever other funds used for improvements. Why we wanna
For
vote that,
all parks or for?
it would be all three parks.
Okay.
Why we wanna vote that down is because we do not wanna send it back to Parks right now. It would delay this item a whole month.
Yeah.
Right. So if we vote that amendment down and issue a new amendment to address the site plan problem, then we'll be right where we're at. We just need to assign the task to someone.
That's. I mean, we're gonna.
The finger's pointing out.
I guess that's me, but I mean, I.
No, because I think that if we could get the site plans for all three parks and annotate them,
Mhm.
with what we know, because we're the only ones who've been working on this the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, the people on the parks haven't really, but we've been here for the duration, so
Okay.
if we can go into those site plans and just color code or annotate or whatever, so it says, oh, this was the original, this is what we ended up with, here's all the expenditures, you know, then can we get that to the county attorney, you know, for review against the agreement that we have?
Question.
And, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So this here, our handout,
Mhm.
this is the expenditure parts.
Part of it. There's also the report that we developed. That's in the,
Yeah, I didn't,
Yeah, but
the reason that this is on your, is that this item, the city administrator said that's not the most up to date, this one is. So what's been handed out is the most up to date figures.
we could create it, council could create it if this amendment fails. Council could create in the next amendment a subcommittee.
yes, that's what we're
Sure.
gonna do.
That's fine.
Okay, can I call the vote on the amendment?
Yes, all in favor?
The amendment is to send
Can
back
I read it?
if you would like to.
Because it is long. I amend that this is sent back to the Parks Board and that they work to provide council with what we've asked for, which is a new site plans of changes made to city parks and the triangle using POSAC funds that clearly represent what has already been done using POSAC money and leaves out any improvements that was funded using other city funds or any future improvements that have not yet been approved or implemented.
Okay.
That's what we're voting on right now.
So we either vote to send it back to the parks, or we vote to kill the amendment and go to the next phase. All right?
So I move that we approve the motion as stated. Is that?
No.
It's already been motioned and seconded. Now we've called the vote. And we would hold the vote to either uphold the amendment
And
or
send it
strike
back to
it down.
parks, or strike it down and not send it to parks. So all in favor of the amendment to send it back to parks, please raise your hand and say aye.
Just send it back to Fox, no.
Okay. All opposed.
I,
The amendment fails. Okay. so-
I move that we form, or I move to amend that we form an ad hoc committee of Mayor Pro Tem Grummert, Councilmember Scott, and Mayor Rasco to prepare the package for Hayes County, including updated site plans for all three parks that leave out any improvements funded by the city.
Second.
Second by Councilman Gully. All right, discussion? All right, all in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand, say aye. Unanimous. Okay, so we're back to the main motion as amended, which is to accept the report. Send it to the ad hoc committee, I'm paraphrasing, send it to the ad hoc committee of Grummert, Scott, and Rasco, for final preparation and get it to Hayes County. So all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you, Dale.
okay, item number 9 is to discuss and take possible action on accept.
Was it 8?
No,
That
we're
was
on,
8.
that was 8.
No, we're done.
Sorry.
That's okay. 9 is to, move to accept a request from Parks and Rec to approve a list of desired items to complete the Augusta Park design.
I move that we accept a request from Parks and Recreation Board to approve the list of desired items to complete the Augusta Park design.
Clarification.
Clarification.
Okay, I gotta give it to Krista. Okay, so what this is this their wish list? You know, they know that they have to send, you know, any purchase item, any request that they want to purchase at any time. You know, they have to send their budget to council for approval. So they know that they can't spend any POSAC money, until it comes back from the county, with approval that, okay, we agree, this is how much you got left to spend, knock yourselves out. So these are the things that they would like to put into Augusta Park. Really, whether funded by POSAC or funded by, but
But it's not correct. There's a line item there that was stricken down.
is that the wind chimes? Did it make it in there? I corrected it someplace else. The wind chimes are not included.
It's in the motion for the item description. We can amend the motion, or, I mean, it's on the cover sheet, and if the city knows what they're supposed to be doing, and we've specified it in the meeting, you know, that can suffice. My concern, is that we can't spend any POSAC funds until we know if the county's approved of where we're at, period. Council already has a decision on the docket. We can't just undo that, especially because we've spent city funds getting here now. B, none of our parks are ADA compliant right now. To me, not only is that a more pressing concern legally, it's a more pressing concern to me financially.
Financially, yeah.
I love this wish list. I would love to see this come through to some degree. There are items in it I do not agree with. Specifically, the teepee, I think, is not a good investment. I've personally owned one. Their lifespan is not very long. They take maintenance, and leaving it up year round means that one will probably be trashed in about a year. So I just, you know, if we're penny pinching places, that would be something I would remove from this proposal. But at this point in time, I don't feel like we can accept this proposal.
On September 21st, council sent the report from the city engineers regarding ADA compliance for our parks to the Parks Board seeking their recommendation. ADA compliance was one of the features of gaining the POSAC grant in the first place. But due to the changes made by the Parks Board and the previous city manager, several of the ADA compliance components are not installed or addressed. I do not support approving any further work being taken in our parks until we better understand the costs associated with ensuring our parks are better ADA compliant. I want to minimize the city needing to find funding elsewhere in the budget to address ADA compliance when it was supposed to already be part of the POSAC funding. On August 28th, council stopped all spending of POSAC funds until the county has seen and approved the new site plans that reflect the changes made to the plans they originally approved. At that same meeting, council approved moving forward with parks site plans and improvements that have no cost. It appears that there's very little left in the POSAC funds to address ADA compliance. In my opinion, the Parks Board should be focused on ADA compliance as their top priority as it relates to spending. And for the moment, put aside any wish list of improvements they would like to see in our parks. Again, I will repeat, ADA compliance was a key factor for the city to meet the requirements of receiving the POSAC funds. Much of those elements have not yet been addressed, which should be addressed with POSAC funds, not other lines of the city budget. Once the ADA elements are addressed in our parks, then we can consider what other improvements we could move forward with.
I have one question, and maybe you can help me also. So there's a couple signs listed on here, and I don't know where they fall in regards to some of these like projects we have pending, or how important those are. I wonder, if just the signs could be something we extract and say the city could purchase and have installed, just because what I don't wanna do is continue to leave parks unfinished.
Right.
You know, and that seems like a little bit of a concession, but also not too expensive, you know?
Yeah, the signs are primarily to identify plants and natural habitat stuff, for the butterfly garden primarily.
Yeah.
Also to give credit to like Meadow Center.
Right, and recognizing the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts and things of that nature. So I think it's important, but, you know, I also agree that, you know, we kind of sidestepped ADA unintentionally. It wasn't an intentional thing, but it kind of got by the board, I think. We weren't getting that direction from our liaison. So we were just kind of focused on just making the park pretty and all that stuff. And I agree that, you know, with the limited funds we have, which aren't gonna be near enough to manage ADA, that we hold on to the purse strings very tightly. I don't think, you know, that I don't think there's anything on that list that we absolutely have to have. I think it's something that, you know, we can tell them no, and that we need to hear from them how they're gonna plan for the ADA.
Yeah, I can tell you that it's on their agenda for the 19th.
Yep. So,
You're not carrying your one. Sorry, we're having a side conversation about math. So I would like to extract the 3 signs for $320 and, would issue an amendment to approve and have those installed.
oh,
It
yeah,
sounds-
so everything, no for everything except for the signs.
And that we pay from out of city funds?
Are we
I mean,
second to-
I'll issue a real motion. I just
Yeah.
wanna
No,
like talk about this as a reasonable,
Yeah, I think
compromise.
if anything, that's probably the most important thing. I mean, there's, all the stuff is gonna make it a much nicer park, but again, we have priorities and we're not focused on those. So I think the signs will go a long way to placate people, you know, but I think we need to save every nickel we have to focus on how we're gonna get out of our ADA budget hole.
And to be clear, it's the only thing needed to wrap up existing projects, correct? Okay, I would,
Yeah, so,
Oh, one comment. We only have $1,000 for signs for the whole year. So that will take a third of it.
$1,000 for signs.
From the parks budget?
Oh, no.
they have their own
I thought-
budget, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were gonna take it from the city budget.
No, I mean, we hadn't gotten that far.
Okay. All right.
Is there a line item you were like to recommend before we issue the amendment? I was gonna go to parks, but,
Not that one, but I can find one.
I mean, I think we
well,
have,
we have to put it in the motion, so my motion would
we have it
include.
in general funds. I mean, we just started the new year.
So general funds are broken out by lines, and
Right.
so we have to say which line item in a motion to direct staff explicitly,
I would prefer it came out of the parks budget.
yeah,
But that's what I meant.
Yeah.
When I said general fund, I meant parks
Yes, sir.
general funds.
yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, I would like to issue an amendment for the main motion to read, instead of list of desired items, strike list of desired items. And in its place, it would say approve the 3 signs totaling $320
Is, sorry, point of information?
to come from the parks budget.
Where's the 320?
That's right. I do.
I've got 195 for educational, 100 for the rain garden.
And 25.
Okay, so those three lines, okay, I got you now. I'll think of 3 signs. It's actually 8 signs.
3 sign items, I guess I should say.
Yeah,
Line items.
3 line items for signs.
3 sign line items.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So Russell will be the second, technically, I guess you spoke, but I wasn't finished with it.
Sorry.
Could I have the main motion repeated before this amendment?
Before the amendment is to accept the request from the Park and Recreation Board to approve a list of desired items to complete the aggressive party line.
So it would strike list of desired items to say 3 sign line items at $320 from parks
Parks budget, yeah.
budget.
Okay, and that's amendment, Hines, second by Scott. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
And so, we'll vote on the main motion to, accept the request from Park and Recreation Board to approve 3 sign line items totaling $320 from the park service. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand, say aye.
Aye.
So moving on to item number 10 is discussion and take possible action on the resolution governing city council meetings for the city of Woodcreek.
I move that we adopt a resolution of the city council of the city of Woodcreek, adopting rules of procedure for the conduct of its meetings and repealing all other resolutions or parts of resolutions inconsistent or in conflict herewith.
Second.
So I will just kind of introduce it for us, but essentially, we typically go over this resolution, especially with the new council makeup, and since we have a new member joining us, it is an appropriate time to review this. In front of you, you have, I forget the title of this kind of editing, but it shows the strike-throughs, it shows what we've added. I'll just highlight kind of the key factors that we changed the time period. We also reduced to 1 main meeting a month. We changed up the agenda submission procedures. This is a big one because previously council members could just submit things and the people compiling the agenda were sort of bound by that submission. And it created a really significant delay in being able to produce the agenda A. It also created duplicate items, items that we couldn't possibly take votes on, items that we, had to publicly basically humiliate ourselves in the meeting over because it was like, we can't move forward on this and this is why. And so what we tried to do in this area is give a little bit of the authority back to our city administration and mayor and for them to better plan city business. So it's sort of a concession and compromise to balance the two bodies and groups, right? Like still protecting the council members' rights to submit items, not infringing on that, but giving city administration a little bit more authority in the compilation of the agendas for better business.
Sure.
So those are the primary things. We also struck some of the arbitrary, like meeting hour limits and that kind of stuff. We took out some language that was a little redundant because if we're building our agendas and they have these sections, we don't necessarily have to protect it. We did extend submission times out some, so you do have to get your items in a little bit sooner. Again, it comes down to the concept of the timeliness of getting things to our legal team so that we're not constantly scrambling and asking Mr. Springerly, hey, can you produce this tomorrow for us? Because that's what's happening. And it's just, we've had years now to fine tune this process, and this is our latest proposal. So that's it.
Yeah, I read through it and I can see the need for the changes. I was all in favor of it when I read it. I don't have any questions.
One question, why are we changing the time of the meeting? The 5:30 for 6? The reason I'm asking, one thing, just the consistency of we've been having this meeting at 6:30, plus people who work, we're not a lot of attendance, but it seems like that would give them some time to get here.
A couple things.
Okay.
One is meetings used to be held at 2:00. And we said people couldn't attend because it was like 2:00, really, people work. So we said, okay, we're gonna meet later, so we said 6:30. And then we said, we're gonna do 2 meetings a month, we'll do one at 6:30 and one at 4. And then we're saying, staff is like overwhelmed. And so we said, okay, so do we really have to have a regular scheduled second meeting? No, we can call a special meeting if agenda item, required, and we used to do that quite well. So if we're only gonna have 1 meeting a month, if that's, if we agree to have 1 meeting a month instead of 2, which is in this proposal, in this resolution, then, some of those meetings may get a couple extra agenda items, and they're gonna be even longer. So starting at 5:30 gives most people a chance to get home, maybe have a quick sandwich and get down here, and maybe not go till midnight or 1:00. So it was a compromise between, 4 and 6:30, but still making it late enough so people can come. And it's still on the table. If somebody says, no, I like
There's
6:30.
still have the option to present comments. You can present them electronically,
Yeah.
or in person. They don't have to actually be here to read the comments. And they can, it's on.
That was the thinking. Yeah, Mr. Norman.
Yeah, so first I have a question regarding, I must not count days very well. It says 12 days, 5 PM. If we're on Wednesday, what is the extra day that falls on? I was thinking that Friday at 5.
Isn't that right?
Not later than one.
Yeah.
Monday.
And then 5 is 12. Is that right? Or are we doing?
Well, okay, so you have a Wednesday and you count back Tuesday,
Yeah, it's Friday,
Monday.
Friday at 5.
Yeah, it's 12.
Right? Okay.
Yeah,
And as always, if something is pressing and, need extra time, all you have to do is ask. But if we have a deadline set, then, hopefully people will respect that and give some time. So what's been happening frankly is that, we have a 1:00 deadline, people are pushing the 1:00 deadline. And so then we're scrambling on Tuesday and Wednesday to get the agenda together, which is not it's not that, it's fairly simple, but it's not it's not that simple. It takes time.
Well, to back up, really, the reality is if we get your item on Monday at 1 and we compile the agenda, which we have been, that gives us literally 24 hours if we have to make any adjustments, meaning if it's in the wrong form, somebody's got to draft the right form, right? And if it's not one of us drafting the right form, we have to get it to legal, we have to give them a reasonable amount of time. And all of this needs to happen before Wednesday when we have the meeting where everybody sits down and says, okay, do we have everything we need? And even in that meeting, sometimes we're still having to draft items because we don't have them in the right form, or we realize, oh gosh, this thing is, we've got to get it on the agenda, we need it to look like this to be able to do it. So, we're doing that, and then it still has to go to legal again, if we're still having Mike Bayes review things. So it's pushing review into Friday morning, when we're also trying to actually post it by then. And it just makes for sloppy work, right? Like, we had typos in this meeting that we didn't catch, and it's because we're always sort of racing the clock at the end. Whereas, I know the reason why we didn't like the Friday submission was because it was too quick of a turnaround from the last
Second
meeting.
meeting, yeah.
But if we don't have the second meeting, then that is not a quick turnaround anymore.
Thank you. Well, 2, probably, I do have an amendment to, which may affect this conversation. I move that council removes the strike through of the second meeting of the month found in Rule 1, Section A. if I have a second for discussion, I can explain why.
Second for discussion.
Thank you. I'm of the opinion that it would be wise for council to leave it standing in the rules that council holds the second meeting of the month. Council can simply just not hold that meeting, but having it on the books means that we wouldn't call a special meeting, which would entail a higher quorum.
There's logic to that.
Yeah, I mean, we debated it. I think it was just because staff really doesn't want to have 2 meetings a month, period. And so if you have 2 set, you're naturally going to be preparing, anticipating 2. But if we only have 1 set and we know that if we push something to a second meeting, you're gonna be hitting special meeting status, it kind of deters it, if that makes sense. I mean, I could really go either way on that.
Well, my thought, I mean,
but-
if I can jump in, I mean, my thought when we were sort of looking at this graph is that, you know, if you can call a special meeting, you know, for any reason, anytime. And if we end the regular meeting, the, you know, second Wednesday regular meeting, and part of that discussion on, you know, upcoming things is like, you know, I've got something that I really need to do, you know, I'd like to make sure that we have a special meeting. I suggest, you know, Wednesday the 24th, right? Then, you know, that's part of that meeting, part of the discussion, and everybody can agree, you know, that's right. That's a good thing to do. But that was my thinking at the time, is that, okay, sure, we'll just talk about it. Anybody feel the need for a second meeting this month? No, but you could have the same conversation at the end of the meeting. Does anybody feel like we have to have the second meeting this month? So, and it just ended up with, no, we'll just strike the second meeting and call it quits. So that was the thinking.
Yeah, I just wanted to present it just in case council wish.
And it's very seldom we don't have at least 4 members. Right? That's, we would need 4.
We would need-
Oh,
It also requires a super majority and vote as well.
Well, yeah,
So
well,
it's
yeah,
not just
yeah, no,
attendance,
you're
it's
So that
quorum.
changes.
it changes the vote, not just the attendance, not just. the
It
quorum.
makes it hard to do business in special meetings.
Yeah.
You know,
True.
and it's meant that way on purpose, but that's why this resolution is so important. That's why we have to have it. Cause it sets our rules collectively.
So,
So if we strike second regular meeting of the month, on the 4th Wednesday of each meeting at 3 PM, can we address the 3 PM timeline? Because obviously this is an old copy of this, because we changed it to 4:30.
Yeah, I didn't, yeah. Is that an amendment to change it to 4:30?
I would change it to 5:30, just keep them the same.
Okay, have them both be the same. That's actually a smart
I
idea.
can
I did-
amend one more time.
Well, I've never seen meetings this way first time.
yeah, I didn't, that's another one I didn't catch. You know, I'm telling you what. You know, if we get, when we get a real honest to goodness city secretary that said, okay, these are all the latest amendments or resolutions, ordinances, the most latest. You know, here's the folder, here's where you find them, and when one gets replaced, the other one goes away.
I don't know who seconded me. I think it was you.
Yeah.
Um,
Her amendment was 5:30.
so we've got a stack of amendments we need to call vote and have.
Okay.
We have,
We need to vote on 5:30 first for the second meeting.
Okay, so the amendment is, Grummert second?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, is to change the time of a second meeting from 3 PM to 5:30, correct?
Correct.
So all in favor of having second, if we just have a second meeting to have it at 5:30, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Four. All right, so the secondary, tertiary, I can't remember what number, is to strike, where it says second regular meeting, so reestablish the second meeting of the month.
Well,
Well,
establishing it.
It's not reestablishing it in the
Document.
document,
Okay.
strike the red line. So removing the red line, that was, Grummert and Hines. So all in favor of striking the red line, please raise your hand.
And second.
So it's all opposed. So we have stricken the red line, changed it to 3:30. So those
So
amendments
it's
are
5:30.
5:30. So those amendments are out of the way. So was there another amendment before the main motion?
Back to it.
Back to the main motion. So we're back to the main motion, where we now have, an established second meeting of the month at 5:30 p.m. Any other amendments to the resolution? So we'll vote on the main motion to approve the resolution as amended. All in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, item number 11, discussion take action to adopt an ordinance amending the City of Woodcreek Code of Ordinances, Chapter 33, Records Retention Management.
I move that we adopt the ordinance amending the City of Woodcreek Code of Ordinances, Chapter 33, Records Retention Management.
I'll second.
Thank you. The handout is your Exhibit A. It was also previously sent to you by the mayor from the attorney. It wasn't attached in the packet, so the mayor did send it out earlier. I just want to make sure.
Oh, okay, you were just bringing that there. Okay, so do you have any discussion on the motion? You just bring that to everybody.
Just introducing it.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor of adopting, ordinance amending the City of Woodcreek Code of Ordinances, Chapter 33, Record Retention Management, please say aye, raise your hand. Thank you. All right, and then this is related discussion and take possible action to adopt a resolution setting a record retention policy for the city of Woodcreek.
I move that we adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Woodcreek adopting record management plan.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
We will point out that the city secretary will have some work to do. All right, item number 13, discussion and possible action regarding the installation of a public restroom at Creekside Park in the city of Woodcreek.
Mayor, I move that council approves the estimate number 1009 by Mock & Sons Construction LLC for installation of a public restroom at Creekside Park and uses it to submit an application in January 2025 for the LCRA grant.
The second.
Thank you. May I
Have
continue?
we got that? I know you'll provide the motion.
That was the motion.
I know, but I'm gonna provide it in writing.
Yes, I know,
Yeah,
absolutely. On October 23rd, council created a subcommittee of the mayor, staff, and myself to apply for the LCRA grant for this public restroom. The deadline for that grant is January 1st through the 31st of 2025, so right around the corner. If council approves this proposal, it will be used to apply for the LCRA grant, which has a limit of $50,000. Council has already approved the matching funds for this grant, also at the October 23rd meeting. The matching for $50,000 would be $10,000, the 20% match. But I would like to ask the city administrator a question.
Yes.
Were you the one that received this quote, and have you been in communication with Mox & Sons, or?
Yes, I received it and I've talked to him, yes.
Great. Do you think Mock & Sons would be able or willing to provide an update to this quote that would include a gutter and rainwater harvesting system and perhaps specify a low water use toilet in the quote?
He's willing to make.
Great. The reason I ask this is the LCRA grant specifically mentions that they give preference to such elements in a project. I also think rainwater harvesting would be a great feature for this location, and in particular, the design of this roof. This collected rainwater could be used to design native plantings into the playground site. Many studies speak to the benefits of sensory gardens within playgrounds, and it would be one more example for the city to use as an educational tool around water conservation. Therefore, I amend that council requests the city administrator to ask Mock & Sons to adjust their quote before January 2nd, 2025, to include a rainwater harvesting system added to the project, and to specify that it is a low water use toilet, and to add any of the extras listed in the quote found on page 57 of the packet, with preferences for the ADA path to the restroom from the street, but excluding the electric hand dryer, all not to exceed $60,000 in total. Again, oh, sorry, nobody's.
Oh, a second.
Thank you. Again, the LCR grant amount we would be asking for is $50,000. And then add to that our matching portion of $10,000. The math works out easily if we go to 60.
So a couple things. We've kind of got the cart before the horse, meaning we have to, they have the bid on the table through our bid process. If you're asking them to resubmit, this is kind of like what we did to the other people. So we'd have to adjust our bid and put a call out for bids. Because, or you accept what's here that we put out publicly. A.
I see what you're saying.
So set that aside. You're also significantly increasing the budget as set by council to install rainwater collection. B. C. If you ask this person to use their estimates for a grant application, but yet you have not entered into a contract with them, that does not lock our contract in. So, meaning that he could, if we get the grant and anything's changed, like for example, the cost of goods as anticipated going up, we're not bound into this contract. We did not give this guy a deposit for his work. At this point, he has not been paid for any of this submission. And so he would likely be willing to adjust. Council has the authority to make minor adjustments on this and say, please bring it back to us for final approval. We did that when we worked on Parkview, but you can't reinvent the whole bid and not go back to bid process. Right?
Yeah.
And we also can't, we can adjust our budget right now, but that's a budget amendment that has to be prepared and presented in a packet formally anytime we do that. If we go over what we have in our line items, right, that's why it's in this packet. So I'm cautioning that, like, I don't think there's a problem with if you wanted to move forward and say, we accept this bid, make some minor adjustments.
Make it a second RFP.
Well, you could go that way, but I'm saying if you accept this bid with minor adjustments, you were to provide this person with a down payment, locking in their contract, you would then have the authority to use their plans for a grant application. At this point in time, we don't have the authority to take this gentleman's work and use it in our grant application.
But what if we say, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, Mayor, my main motion does say to accept it.
Right, but it doesn't include putting in a deposit. It also, we can go back to that, but right now, we're way down here at this other motion with all these amendments, right? So you have to strike all of that down to get back to the main motion where it says we accept this. And we would need to engage with him, and we would need to make any minor adjustments we want tonight. And then he would have the ability to say, I don't wanna do this if y'all are gonna apply for the grant process because I'm not, I've already given y'all a big deal and not, cause he's covering the cost of some of these engineered plans and things that are actually really expensive. He's sort of absorbing that into this lower quote for us right now. That grant process, remember the one time we got to look at it? So this grant is a little tricky. On January 1st, they finally open up and tell you everything they want, truly like item by item, everything you have to submit. up until that, it's just like, oh, some basics, right? And then when you get it open, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the level of detail we had to get for the rain barrel stuff, right? So it just kind of, it changes the dynamic of this significantly. The last thing, and I'll give up the floor, I want council to consider is when we're closing the park to build this, are we closing it in off season? Or are we closing it in the middle of primary park season, right? So that's something to consider on the timeline of this project. If you apply for this grant, it's going to set out funding 3 months probably. So we won't be starting to build until April at the earliest, and that's if everything goes smoothly. And then we're dealing with, like what happened with the POSAC grant, cost of good changes. And this whole project will start to shift again. Just a heads up on that route. I know council said, yes, we want to do the grant. That doesn't mean we are bound by that decision.
Well, I have a question about what you're saying about deposit monies. If we enter into a contract with this contractor, sign an agreement with them to give them deposit monies and our grant is not funded, where does that leave us?
You would move forward funding it from city money.
We have money allocated,
You've got, just curious.
we just would rather not spend it.
Oh, no, I get that. I should know if, you know.
Yeah, if we don't, it's kind of like the block grant on Deerfield.
Yeah,
We knew that if it didn't come through, we were still gonna pay that road,
right.
you know, so
Okay.
if this doesn't come through, we're still gonna push that.
Just a clarification for me.
But I do like the idea of ultimately to have rainwater collection. Ultimately, it'd be nice to have, I wish we had enough rain to use it to flush the toilet.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just some things for points of consideration. One, I love the rainwater thing, but he's not a rainwater guy. We have one. So that contractor doing the building is going to
So,
sub it out to somebody and raise the price. We have a rainwater company that can do that at a more economical cost and having it subbed out. That makes sense. And to her point, in his bid, in his quote, he understands that there's some other costs that he needs to incur. Structural plans, for the building, for the foundation,
access.
that he's not willing to expand yet until he knows he has a contract, but that's part of it. There's other, we have some other expenses in that, and being that we are the city and we require certain things for permits, we must be transparent and do the same thing. Send it to ATS for review and inspections. There's some costs there that we incur. We also, a grinder pump is gonna be required. Sewer taps, sewer and water taps, which possibly Rockville would be willing to forego costs on that. But the main thing is he has other costs that he will incur once the bid is, quote is accepted.
question,
So,
Sir,
so on the quote, maybe we should close out that last amendment because it doesn't seem to work.
okay,
I would prefer that. It will clean up our discussion.
I think if we vote out that last amendment, and then I can kind of go.
so
back.
my vote is to add all the stuff to the plan.
Yeah,
A nay vote is to not pass the amendment.
and thank you, Deborah, for reminding me, I'm sorry, council member.
You're fine. We're okay.
For reminding me, like,
We're fine with
we
it.
have a number here and we're not allowed to go about it. So,
Yeah.
but, go ahead.
All right, so all in favor?
Okay, can you explain that
Okay.
again?
Okay, the amendment on the floor that we're voting on is to add stuff to the plan. So an I vote would add the rainwater and the low flow toilet and
Send it back to them.
and also, so what we've said is that's probably not the best idea. So an I vote approves that, a nay vote kills the amendment. So all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Hearing none, all opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So, thank you.
So we go back to the motion of accepting this estimate and using it for the grant application. So it's just that basic motion is what we're discussing right
Well,
now?
was the original?
No, because-
Original motion include the LCRN?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so it's accept the estimate and use it for the grant application. That's the original motion. And it lists Mock and Sons, it lists the number and all that. But sorry, it just simplified.
So,
Can I ask
yes,
a question, because you've seen, so there's extras on page 57 built into the quote?
No, the extras would be in addition to the 54.
yeah,
I asked them to split some of it out, specifically the ADA, path, just because I knew that was going to park, so I just,
Well, so the reason I'm asking the question is in order to accept the quote, can we use some of the extras and put them in?
You have, that's an amendment. We would say amend to include extras in the final cost. And so it would, those would drive that cost up. The ADA.
You could do change orders in the future,
yeah, that's what I was
Oh,
saying.
okay.
Good point too.
so you don't have to lock in those now, but keep the discretion to add those later on.
Yeah, so what we could do is say, okay, well, you have X toilet spec, we would like a low flow.
I would
So
like,
what's the difference gonna be with that, and then submit a change order for it.
I would like to amend to include all of them, to be honest. I don't see how we can install it without the path, because then we're just doing the same thing we've been doing, which is a little problematic. The auto flush toilet seems like a good idea, because then you don't get in there with a lot of, the kids always forget to flush the toilet. The changing station, I think is a must have, mandatory.
Mhm.
The electric hair and dryer just seems relevant, because what else are you gonna do? Just,
Well, and then we talked to the city manager, or city administrator of Wimberley, and their experiences in their public toilets. They said, you want electric hand dryer, because you gotta maintain this thing, paper waste adds up.
Yeah.
That does not, the other thing says, you get the big roll of toilet paper. Get the ones that have, you know, 2 big rolls in there, so that, because we talked a lot about the maintenance, what the maintenance of this thing is gonna be once we get it installed.
Yeah.
We don't have a flush department.
So I agree with all the extras except the hair dryer because hand dryer. Except because of all the studies, I believe I wrote it all down and then I computer wiped it. It's 48 times, the hair dryer bacteria, hand dryer bacteria. There's all these studies been done that it's 48 times the amount of that's on the toilet seat. And when the hand dryer blows, it spreads 15 feet and can linger in the air for 15 minutes, that bacteria. So that actually, it's a weird toss-up between health, like electric hand dryers studies have been proving that it's a bad health thing, versus the environment, which is paper.
you know, it's different though. Did you pay attention to which hand dryer that was about? So that's about the push button one that blows it. Those ones you
Just
dip your hand in aren't.
Tyson, yeah, blade
Yeah,
dryer.
they don't do it.
The blade dryer is what you need, yeah.
Yeah.
So is that what this one is?
It's not
We can
specified.
specify that we want the dip instead of the sponge.
I think it's called a blade, Tyson.
Blade, it's
And no, we're gonna go with dip rather than sponge.
another point on the hair, now you got me doing it. Hair dryer. It's, the bathroom is open air, open vent, you know, and you're going back out to the playground. You're not going to eat dinner, so it's,
Yeah,
you know.
but
I don't know if you've
I
ever seen
understand.
children, they're mixing dinner and playground all the time.
You know,
But, I would like to amend to include those extras.
I second.
Okay.
is that including the
Electric hand dryer.
All 4.
the ADA path?
Is there a reason not to? Cause you seem hesitant. so-
No, all I had, my note was, I had him separate that out strictly because of the ADA issue that will be coming up before
Yeah.
This does
That's
help
the
in
only
problems, though.
Yeah.
I guess the only component I really wanted us to use a grant when I thought the bathroom was gonna be very, very, very expensive. Now that we're back down into the range that we sort of were like, this is a reasonable amount to spend on the bathroom. I just really want us to think carefully about our goals here, right? Saving $50,000 is huge. I'm not looking at that without, like, due respect. I am a little bit concerned about continuing to delay the installation of this item that the grant could present. I am concerned about the increase of cost of goods over that time period, and I'm concerned about how we adequately lock in this contract with this gentleman in the meantime, ensuring that we have these sufficient plans to be able to apply for the grant. And then lastly, where that impacts us being able to install this in regards to like the closing time period that it, like when our park's most used, you know, cause then it would be like, okay, we got the grant, now let's delay another 6 months to install, right? Because we'd wanna install during November, December likely.
But can't we alternatively use a portable ADA during construction?
You can, but the construction inside of the park would mean that,
Of the
so we,
weekend?
yeah, so that was something we were looking at is could we put it on the outside of the park where that tent toilet is now? But that sort of, again, it's like you start all over, right? We have to have engineers look at that area. We have to assess it because it's in the right of way. Just technically, nobody's allowed to build structures in the right of way. The city would be violating its own code to do that.
Okay. Okay.
You know, that's directly in the floodplain for sure. On the other side of the playground.
So you feel like it needs to be completely shut down for the, and do we know?
That or you'd have to install massive fencing, which is another added cost. That can be like $60,000 by itself.
Do we know, Jim, how long he's proposed?
Yeah.
I did not get a time frame.
30 days? Is it
For as far as being shut
30, how long to
down.
build it?
He did not give me a time frame, but just guessing in my experience, it'd be 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say at least a month.
Yeah, well, because there's a lot of inspections with
There's a lot
plumbing and
of
electrical
parts.
that you've gotta go through and there's, you know, and then you got your weather delays, like you can't
Yeah.
pour cement when it's raining, you know, and stuff like that. And so these are just things to think about in your final
Yeah.
decisions that make me hesitate.
If I may, to follow up on this discussion, so council, where I was coming from was council had already made this motion to use the LCR, or use the public bathroom for the LCRA grant. Now we've had discussions about rainwater collection system being really good for this location. And I could foresee myself to facilitate this notion of we just move forward now to fulfill all the deadlines of getting done before spring, utilizing city funds, but then utilizing the possibility of an LCR grade grant for the rainwater collection on the bathroom. And it could be a smaller grant, because I don't know how big rainwater collection systems are. But
What's this one?
10,000.
That's what I said too.
This tank back here?
Yeah.
Are you talking
With
about
installation,
quantity or cost?
with installation.
Cost.
Cost, one was 9 and one was 7.
Yeah,
-ish.
it's
So
like that.
that one was 7-ish.
so it would be a smaller grant we'd be applying for, but the reason I'm saying all that is I actually support this concept of removing the language of applying for the LCRA grant for this public health.
And just bringing it back in a different form.
And I know that the deadline's really short, but we still
We've
have,
already approved applying to the LCR, applying for the
Yes.
LCR, so we can go forward with that for January 1st-ish.
city attorney, I have a question.
Yes.
So council has previously specifically said that the public bathroom was gonna be applied for the LCR grant. How do we undo that, or do we just, by making a different decision, that automatically?
They're kind of preempting, revising.
We don't have to speak it out loud per se.
No. The later in time action is more specific in the directive that you would follow.
Interesting. Go ahead.
I do want to comment, I would be opposed to not using the LCR grant. 50,000 is a lot of money, and it's taxpayer dollars. And if it takes a little longer, we have a portable potty there, we can work with it. We didn't have the park a year ago, so this is an addition to the city. But to rush in and get a toilet put in so that they will have it sooner and waste $50,000, I think that is something we better think hard about.
How much do we spend on the toilet all the time?
Almost 300 a month,
So,
so I mean, I can pull up before I say that.
So that's 3,000 a year.
I have a, just a weird idea that's been going through my head that I just have to say out loud. So we have a perfectly good plan for a park potty. Right? We'd like to get the LCR to help us with it, right? So we could use the plan again for Augusta Park. For Augusta, for instance, and that's what we could apply LCR for, with the same plan.
you're gonna need
Yeah,
the
sure.
engineered plans.
We put that,
That gentleman would also have to sign off on you using them, which he might, and then it would have to be specified for that park, which would be, it's not the same plan. It would be different.
Just,
Go ahead.
we wouldn't need to generate them on that.
You're not gonna meet it with rainwater either, I almost interrupted you, because you don't have those plans. Somebody's gotta do all that, and so that's even what prevented us from doing it for the rainwater for the city, is once we opened that application, we realized even with having everybody already working on it, we weren't gonna have they weren't even willing to provide everything we needed until they had the contract, if that makes sense. Cause that's so much work on the front end for these guys, and they're
Yep.
I mean, we're in maybe a building slump right now, but basically everybody I talked to was like, oh yeah, we're slammed, we don't need this work, right? Like, so unless it's a green light from y'all, we're gonna only take you to here. And then we'll take you the rest of the way. So that's just what I noticed.
Yeah, if I may, I agree with Linnea. I like your suggestion about the rainwater, because I think it's an excellent idea, and I think we should do it at all of the parks. But, and I was gonna bring this up in another meeting, but along the same lines, I really think there's opportunity out there to get funding for rainwater collection and rainwater harvesting through corporations that support it, that want to build them for residential, want to build them, we put signage on those rainwater collection barrels, phone numbers, QR codes, whatever.
yeah, that's what the water task force has been working on.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, we shouldn't have to be paying for any of that. We're giving you a free sign at our park that 100 or 200 people a day are gonna see that live here, that have been through the drought and they're tired of having brown yards and wanna have some rainwater. So I think there's other opportunity. I don't wanna go down a rabbit hole, but I think there's opportunity there, and I think it should be pursued. I think it's something we should do, but I agree with Linnea. I don't think we should pull this off. I think it's a big chunk of funds that we should go after, that we have the right to get, and that we should get everything of it that we can.
So to help ease people's mind, because right now I'm just looking at that January 1st deadline, and that's tough.
Yeah, it's,
Just so you know, LCRA grants.
well, it's not the deadline, that's when it opens, right?
Yeah, it's the deadline January 31st or
Oh,
something.
okay,
I'm sorry, you have the floor, Mr. Grummert.
Thank you.
sorry.
The LCRA grants, January 1st, the window opens January 1st to the 31st, so it closes then. I'm verifying, but I believe it also has a July,
June.
looking, July. So it also, you can apply twice a year, or there's 2 windows. So
Is it 50,000 a year or 50,000 a year?
That's the highest.
that's the
they
highest
can.
ask.
for each or for the year?
Yeah.
You don't, you
get
can only get it
100,000?
once every 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So we can't go back again for something else.
Thank you.
So right now, the motion is to accept the estimate and use for grant application with amending to include the extras.
With
What?
with
Okay.
specifics on
The amendment, the current amendment, I mean, that we're looking at is to add the extras to the quote.
Can I ask your attorney, or this is a question for y'all, so say we love it, we accept this quote with the extras, we're gonna use it for our bid. What would we need to do between now, or not bid, application, what do we need to do legally with that individual to sort of, I mean, like, we'd have to, what would the motion actually be? It'd be like to enter into a contract locking in these prices with no more than this much for a down payment, right? We'd have to give staff specifics for that contract in order to move forward with the grant application using this man's work, correct?
Acceptance of his bid, and his quote. And then, you can do addendums if you need to tweak anything or revise it in the future. Within certain parameters, you can't like create a whole new project and add a change order. There's like a 25% limit on the budget. So if I understand your question, right, just accept his quote. And that is a contract. I mean, you can have an ensuing agreement brought back with more like a purchasing rider or a simple construction agreement if you want to have that approved by the council later on.
When does LCRA announce the grant? Not after closing,
Yeah, I wrote,
when do they announce the
Probably 30
awardees?
Probably March 1st, I would think. Usually 30 days.
I don't know, I was wrong earlier when I thought I knew I was wrong, that, so just.
I'm on the grant site right now, just a moment.
They range usually 30 to 90. Is like what I've seen on all the grants, like not the federal ones, obviously, but.
I did send it to you by email once.
I mean, you've been working with Mock and Sons. Do you feel like that if we were to accept his bid, that he'd be okay with entering into the grant application process with us and developing some of those things without a deposit as part of this motion or without some sort of signed agreement that because the other concern I have is you don't get the grant, we've said we accept this guy's bid, he's put in even more work and then we're like, never mind,
But we're not gonna say never mind, are we?
My concerns
know what people are doing.
with all that is, one, if we're asking him to do it with no money down, he's gonna incur thousands of dollars for engineering fees and
Yeah, that's not fair.
plans and all that. We can't ask him to do that. And two, if we're going to accept it and accept the bid, knowing that we're going to go to LCR, whatever, LCRA, and that's at least 90 days. And if we miss it and we gotta go to July, there's no guarantee that
I don't
the
think-
material cost will be the same.
So-
It might be lower, but it could most likely be higher.
No, what I've got in my head is that we say, hey, Moccasins, we're gonna do this, we're gonna sign an agreement. We're willing to give you a down payment. But we also wanna submit the plan, we're trying to get this funded.
Subject to,
And so, we're going to put your bathroom in our park regardless. But we would rather do it with LCRA funding. So if we get turned down, you build. If we get approved, you build, but there's going to be a time delay between when we contract with you and give you our down payment and March 1st or whenever it is where we find out whether we have the grant awarded or not. But regardless, we are still going to put your bathroom in our park. That's part of the agreement.
We can't use any of the grant to pay for those costs either. Like those engineering and plans and things, this grant can't be used for that.
What about?
So
the
that would
matching-
be out of city
What about the
pocket.
matching portion?
The matching portion has to come from the city, so none of the grants like the matching and the grant itself can be used to pay for that individual's engineering and planning costs that would be incurred in preparing for the grant.
Right, and that's not part of the specifications for the proposal that he's provided us. I think Jim's just saying contractors have a lot of behind the scenes overhead that I don't when I charge people, I don't say, it took me $600 to draw out the design for your deck. I'm not charging you that $600. I'm just charging you to build the deck. You know, but then you say, oh, actually, I want it completely different, do it again. Well, by the time the third time, I'm $4,000 into drawings and I haven't got a penny from you. Oh, well, we decided not to, and I'm out $4,000. So that's what he's saying is that if we're gonna do it, we need to get the guy a deposit, but to your point, we're not paying for non-LCRA funded, monies. If we do, it comes out of our general fund budget, not out of LCRA. So,
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure we're clear on that, and that, we gotta give the guy a deposit.
Well, that's my point, is we have money in the budget already
Mhm.
to do this project, so we take those things and we take it out of there, and then when we get the grant, we say, okay, and then the funds, the things that the grant approves of, that is funded by the grant, is funded by the grant, but the superfluous stuff has already been done.
I found that notification, the city would be once we've applied, the city would be notified by LCRA on whether or not the city did receive the grant 8 weeks after the January 31st.
60 days.
Okay.
So, April.
One last point, going back, if we do that and we're going to accept them, and then he's gonna have to wait, we must make a concession in that contract that if prices go up, he can charge us more.
Here's
We
an
cannot
opportunity.
hold him 3 months down the road to the prices that are current.
I think that goes without saying,
So I just
It's not
wanna
fair.
make sure that,
and he wouldn't sign it.
right, I just wanna make that clear. Russell and I both understand clearly what that.
In a current environment, I don't think it's gonna happen, but yeah, it's a valid point. I think they're gonna go down. I don't think they're gonna go up. But you're absolutely right. I mean, they can, and it can substantially can change. The world changes in the blink of an eye, so.
I haven't seen prices go down in a long time.
They've been coming down.
Interest rates
Yeah.
are double what they were a year ago. Housing is down.
Yeah,
We just had a bump in inflation.
yeah.
That means the Fed's not gonna lower interest rates. We're gonna have a lean period
Mhm.
for construction
Yep.
for at least 6 months.
Which means prices go down for construction materials
Down
because they're not
materials,
finding.
there's no demand.
So,
Though
I mean, I've
it's
already
unlikely
seen
they'll
lumber
go up.
tumble and masonry tumble, and I mean, those prices are coming down
That's good.
considerably, but that's a moot point. I mean, what we're saying is we have to have the understanding that he may need to charge us, up if we put him off 90 days or 120 days.
Okay, that circles back to, do we feel like our motion is sufficient for our goals? Meaning, the motion right now is to accept this estimate with the amendment of the extras and use for the grant application. What are we lacking?
Do you need to add delegate to the city administrator signing the contract with legal approval?
Yes. Delegate, so I'll amend to add delegate to city admin to sign contract with legal approval.
I second.
No, because they need it all together. Otherwise my brain jumps and I lose my spot.
Shift into the face and she's right in the corners like
You
this.
need a bigger legal pad.
Yeah.
No. Keep your eyes on your own paper, okay?
One last question, Chris, what's the deadline to turn it into LCRA? Just because he's,
31st.
January 31st, the absolute last day.
okay. Just because if we're gonna do that, he's gotta get on it and get everything needed that we need.
Do we need a specified deposit amount? Are y'all okay with them negotiating that out in their contract process?
Negotiate.
You say 20%, 20%.
Okay, so the amendment is to delegate to, city administrator Burton to sign a contract with, Mock and Sons, with legal approval.
The corrections.
No.
No, those are two different.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we'll come back to the.
Gotcha.
So right now, we're only voting to, that Jim can work with legal to get a contract and sign it.
Correct.
Okay. All in favor?
School second. Right.
Unanimous. And then we're back to the motion to accept the bids with the extras.
Do we need to specify anything about the hand dryer?
No, we're just doing all.
I think you understood based on conversation that we went dip, not punch, right?
It was-
Blade,
yes,
blade.
Yes,
Blade.
and that,
The warrants.
yeah, they're more expensive, so that change order.
Yes, yes.
All right, so all in favor of the motion to accept the extras as part of the bid package, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
We're not done. One more vote.
Well, so the main motion is to approve the bid, for the installation of the public restroom at Creekside Park at Woodcreek, with Mock and Son, and, file the plans with LCRA for the grant application in the January 1st to the 31st window. That close enough?
Mhm.
All right, so that's the motion we're voting on. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Here's the missing one, y'all.
Yeah.
It's good, it's good. Good conversation. Okay, so number 14 is, discuss and take possible action to direct the infrastructure and mobility panel to review the drainage report being prepared by city engineers Freeland Church and discuss drainage recommendations with the engineers before their final report is submitted to the city council. Ms. Bailey?
Okay, the, infrastructure mobility panel,
Motion.
Yeah.
oh, I make the
Yeah,
motion
put it in the way.
for the city council to direct the infrastructure and mobility panel to review drainage prior, drainage report and discuss drainage recommendations with Freeland Church before the final report is submitted to city council. Okay. Whatever this just said. Review drainage report and discuss drainage possibilities with Freeland Church. Recommendations with Freeland Church before the final report is submitted to council. We have a hardworking, no,
That was your motion. Second.
Russell seconds it by speaking
And then second.
formally.
All right, now you miss.
all right, it's gonna get us over here. So they're a hardworking group and they wanted to have input on the drainage proposals. Their existing panels, 3 engineers, and, I know that the fate of this panel will depend on the next item on the agenda. But I told these guys I would make the presentation as for their wishes.
Ms. Hines?
Are you arguing with the mayor about who he recognizes?
He's ready for down.
I didn't realize she was done, so I was like, I was waiting.
This preempts council's authority. I don't agree with this item because we haven't even seen the report of what's going on. I don't think already telling ourselves that before we ever see it, we're gonna send it to an advisory body is a good idea, regardless of who's on that advisory body. I just feel like it could be a real waste of time and city business, but also council should never give away its power like this, meaning like, what if we get the report, we don't want their input? Why would we bound ourselves in this way I think it's wrong, but.
I think they have the same discussion on the committee. Did they not, about not wanting to have their voice heard? And they're, wanting to get their points across to see what the council, what our thoughts were.
Right.
Go ahead.
That the council, without their input, I'll just clarify what I'm saying, without their input, the council just say, oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Where they feel they have something to contribute, and that's the essence of an advisory panel.
Mr. Grummert?
I amend that council creates a subcommittee of the current members of I&M Panel to review the drainage report prepared by the city engineers after council has received it, and then provide council with their recommendation.
Second by Brendan, thank you.
But I do understand Councilmember Hines' point, which is this hasn't happened yet. We don't have the report. So,
Yeah, I mean, that was my only concern too, it's like the tail wagging the dog. What would typically happen is, okay, so we get the report and we go, okay, there's a lot of stuff in here, we've got these engineers, take a look at it. This report, because it's not a final report, it's not a final report until we vote it's final. So we say, okay, take a look at this and report back to us, see what you think. Tell us what's missing out of this, and then it comes back to council. That's the way I would think it should happen. So having I&M say they get it first before, we get it, is like the tail wagging the dog, or something. That's the way it is.
I just wanna like.
So I like the amendment.
It's satisfying. I just want to stress part of this is kind of like a citywide business issue, right? This isn't directed at the I&M in particular, but it's directed at all of the advisory bodies in general, understanding sort of the power dynamics or the decision capacity actually always only rest with council, and that all of these boards serve at the pleasure of council, meaning they only exist because council wants them to. They only technically, unless we specify otherwise, work on things we ask them to. And so there has been some confusion in that dynamic, and there's been a lot of pressure from advisory boards onto council to just rubber stamp things, or the advisory board must be followed, and if council deviates, we're not doing our job, we're not valuing them, we're not listening. And I kind of want to get away from that power dynamic, because we are the elected people. We stood up and put ourselves at the mercy of the public, and then we appointed them to help us at our pleasure, right? So I don't want to get into this dynamic of advisory boards continuing to make demands of us and basically saying that, like, if you don't do what we say, you're not listening to us. Because I believe that in good faith, this board takes in a myriad of factors and inputs and discussion points and information to make our decisions. And that when we go against advisory boards, we don't do it willy-nilly. We do it for good reason with proper cause, right? So that was the point of me speaking and just wanting to make sure moving forward, we have better city business.
And I know that in part, they looked at the ordinance that created their panel and they saw, here's their duties. So there's also that, like, aren't we supposed to be doing that? Are we derelict in our jobs? But it's just a matter of sequencing them.
One last kind of point of order sort of thing. I would say that motion is not an amendment. It's a completely different motion than what's on the table. And so I think that we need to reflect on that in regards to.
So, city attorney, excuse me. If she's correct in her assessment that mine is actually a separate motion, do we need to, I don't get to withdraw my amendment. We'd have to vote it down and then vote on the existing motion. And then,
Depending on that, bring another motion.
yeah. Correct?
Or can this be amended to?
Well, that's parliamentary procedure. Yes, that is, I agree that that is a new motion, not an amendment.
Okay. But I can't retract my amendment. Correct? Because somebody's already seconded it.
Yeah, there you go. You
can
can
table it.
table it.
It can come up later in the meeting.
Good motion to table.
Actually, I don't know if you can do that with amendments.
I don't know either.
I think you have to,
Practices vary. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. But to go back to what you originally said, you could just simply take,
Vote it down.
not necessarily, it just doesn't pass.
can you withdraw without hearing objection and just follow?
If there's no objection, I withdraw the amendment.
Well, like I said, practices vary.
Since we
I
have,
don't think anyone would oppose that, so you could. I don't think anybody's gonna challenge it.
Yeah, I mean, it simplifies things that we think we know is gonna happen anyway.
okay,
So if there are no objections, we withdraw the amendment. Do I hear any objection? No, okay, so amendment is withdrawn. We'll vote on the motion, which is to direct I&M to review the drainage report prepared by city engineers and discuss drainage recommendations with the engineers before their final report is submitted to the city council. So a vote for this is to do that. A nay vote is to kill this motion. So all in favor, please say aye. Okay. All opposed, nay?
nay,
Okay.
All right, motion fails. You have a motion, sir?
well,
You're not gonna make your motion.
sorry.
No, those are road call.
We could actually make the motion when we get the report, like, put it at the, like, at the.
Oh, I thought you had a motion to create a subcommittee.
You offered it as an amendment. Do you want to offer that
As a motion to create a subcommittee
now?
that after the council receives.
Well, it's so far, it's so future looking that once we actually get the report, we can make that motion. That
All right.
is my thinking at the moment.
Okay. Then we'll move on to item number 15. Discussion and take possible action to reduce the number of advisory boards for the city council of Woodcreek, consolidate and unite some in function and purpose, reduce the restrictiveness of Texas Open Meetings Act, components were applicable and lawful, create a new committee specifically for the purpose of handling community relations and authorize legal counsel to draft ordinances for this purpose.
So. I'm sorry, I thought you adjusted the wording on this. Stanley submitted alternate wording. Did it not?
Well, this is just the agenda item. You can put any motion forward regarding this, right?
Yeah, okay. I am really thrown off, I apologize. I move to reduce the number of advisory bodies for the city council of Woodcreek, consolidate and unite some in function and purpose, reduce the restrictiveness of Texas Open Meetings Act components where applicable and lawful, create a new committee specifically for the purpose of handling community relations, and authorize legal counsel Stan Springerly to draft ordinances for this purpose.
I second.
May I ask what I'm sorry, I thought this is. what we-
No, his wording was slightly different and it used specifically like reaching a consensus. Because, to introduce this item, for the last 6 months, we've been discussing about how to streamline city business. Whenever Mayor Rasco took leadership and the council sort of took a new, approach to city business, we greatly expanded advisory boards. And we specifically bound them all by TOMA to increase transparency. In theory, excellent idea. In practice, over the last 3 years, we have struggled to maintain full boards because the true amount of people of any population that get involved is like, we'll say 10%, right? And so we're tapping out our 10%, right? That's an imaginary number I made up for the concept. So we're struggling to keep full advisory boards, A. B, we're struggling with the transfer of information, even with liaisons, because that process only works as much as the liaison works, right? And then finally, staff has also, we were having so many meetings a month, and this is something even previous staff complained about. And if we don't learn from those losses of those individuals and what we did right or wrong, we're kind of just bound to continue repeating ourselves. So, staff has asked for us to slow down a bit to reduce the workload on them. We have also found that some of these boards' duties were overlapping to such a degree that they were getting in each other's way. Parks and Trees is a really great example. And then, without the foresight of understanding that we had to create a communication channel between the two of them, specifically in the ordinance, it also meant things had to come to council and be sent. And so we got in the way of ourselves, and we didn't know that when we started. But now here we are, and we need to learn from those lessons. So the proposal is to condense down to essentially 3 boards. Community Relations Board to handle all events and that kind of stuff for the city. People who want to do that, because right now we've got 1 or 2 people on each board, and the boards are having a hard time throwing events because the people on the boards don't necessarily want to be doing them. And they're getting stuck in it, right? The other component, and it lists these on the cover sheet, but the other component is putting boards together that serve the same function, Parks and Trees. So we'd have Parks and Trees, Community Relations, and then we continue having our P&Z board, but we would give them a lot of the ordinance review committee duties. The I&M panel would dissolve. We could form a subcommittee of those individuals if they're still willing to volunteer to help us. And then that subcommittee could function in a different manner. The key component is when we formed the I&M panel, we didn't have Freeland Turk necessarily. They have revolutionized how our city does business. And the way that they work with us and for us, the kind of reports they're providing, the ability, the scope of work they're able to produce on a price point that we were not seeing with K3s. Right now, K3s, $50,000 to do that. Freeland Turk, $3,000, right? That's kind of the dynamic where we were like, we need volunteers doing all of this. Now with Freeland Turk, it's alleviated a little bit of that. The other key component everyone needs to be aware of is loosening up the TOMA stuff so that these boards can better function. We still are promoting transparency, but we're not binding them legally in the same way we have been. So it eases up how they make their quorums. It eases up sort of just like, if the Parks and Trees Board needs to go out and meet in the field, they don't have to record that meeting, and maybe they can't make any decisions out there, but it just kind of, anyway, we have ordinances prepared that we're going to go into the packet. Mr. Springerly asked for more time to be able to review that in depth, catch any errors, make sure it completely aligns with what's currently codified. So we're not coming back in another month trying to fix more mistakes. The other thing we've been doing for the last year is trying to get all of our boards sort of unified in general with the language. So this is sort of snowballing on that. And the other component would be reducing the amount of people on the boards. So the goal being striking alternates, because it's very confusing what you do as an alternate. It's very confusing to have to attend meetings without being able to put in a vote. And then sometimes you do get to vote, but maybe you're not prepared because you haven't been coming to all the meetings. And so it also removes tying everybody's terms to council members. That only happens with the P&Z in this proposal. The rest of the terms would only be for 1 year. So every year we sit around and we say, who's our Parks and Trees Board? Do these people want to do it again? Great. If they do, it gives us an opportunity to cycle in more volunteers. It also gives us an opportunity to kind of fix things that aren't working. If we've got members who aren't showing up or aren't capable of fulfilling the role like we thought, it just gives us more flexibility there. So that's the introduction.
Thank
And
you.
then, and then.
And I chimed what I was gonna say, so. All right, I'm going to be opposed to dissolving the I&M committee. And I just wanted to, I have a different take on it. That panel was created last year to take place of the Platinum Road panel. We started work in December. I worked with, Mayor Pro Tempore. It took until April for the council to get an ordinance that was approved. Then the I&M panel started. Two people from Platinum Roads, Craig Biggs and Rogers Holt, joined that new panel, but they stuck it out for that 4 months waiting. And then we also joined with, Lydia Johns, Jay Galloway, and Jose Tormo. Unfortunately, in June, Craig Biggs and Lydia Johns had to leave because of health problems, leaving only a 3-member panel. Even though that panel was small, it still worked very hard. As recently as last weekend, Rogers Holt and Jay Galloway went all around Woodcreek and checked every cul-de-sac to see if it needed to be changed to help emergency vehicles, because it was discovered in one. So they just took the initiative that this was their job to review things like that. In Woodcreek, roads are very important. They're our #1 asset. Taking care of them, with maintenance money remaining from the bond can save money in the long run, make them last 10 to 15 years longer, but this needs to be monitored. Besides roads, the panel was focused on fixing drainage and creating safe walking paths. If the panel didn't exist, the city would need to hire engineers at $200+ an hour to handle this problem. It would cost a lot more. And what this panel can do is mitigate those costs. Woodcreek has a tradition of using committees to solve problems. They're helpful and cost less than hiring outside experts. The committees that you have reformed none of them replace what the I&M committee is tasked with doing. These panels make people feel included and they keep costs down. I don't agree with the decision to end the I&M panel, but I think council members don't have the skill to fix complicated problems like drainage, traffic safety, and road maintenance on their own. By working with talented volunteers, Woodcreek can solve these issues in a better and cheaper way. In the bottom of this one sheet, it says,
Which,
the sheet about I&M committee.
It's the cover sheet for this item.
Anyway, it says, Freeman Turk has been tasked by council vote with the primary functions of I&M.
Yes.
When did that happen?
I can look up the exact meeting, but I presented it and we approved it, and it was 4 items: drainage, pedestrian, and
But that
road
was a
maintenance.
$24,000 cost.
For them to develop the plans to present to council for consideration, yes. Yeah,
But that is a little different than being tasked with all the primary functions.
yeah, those are the 4 primary functions of the I&M, was to develop those plans for us, and we tasked Freeland Turk to do it at this point, to give us the initial scope and sequence of all of them. I did have a question for you. Who did you say reviewed the cul-de-sac? Rogers, Holt, and who?
Jay Galloway.
Jay Galloway. And so what type of engineers are they?
I was going to call and get the credentials are on their applications. But,
So are they road engineers?
nor are we. I don't think they're
No,
road engineers.
So they're not road
But
engineers?
they are trained in a skill. Engineering is like, if you have an engineering degree, it's different than
No.
having a fine arts degree.
Right, so
No.
electrical engineering is
Civil
different than
engineering.
civil engineering, so
Yeah.
is road engineering. Right, so that's, the point of this is specifically with I&M. The type of tasks we were asking of volunteers are better served to the city with professionals trained in those fields. None of those gentlemen are the appropriate type of engineer to assess emergency capacity for cul-de-sacs. Even with their layman assessment and related fields, we would still need to move forward with assessments from actual engineers in those fields. Because we continue to
What
put
field would
ourselves,
that be?
what Freeland Church specializes in specifically. Let me just finish this point. We continue to put ourselves at a legal risk, letting people walk around saying, we're ADA compliant. These cul-de-sacs are safe for emergency vehicles. We have to start paying professionals for those components in particular, and we got ourselves into trouble with the parks. These cul-de-sacs were not reviewed whenever we did the road. That was a huge oversight we should have caught. If we had had Freeland Turk at that time, I guarantee they would have ensured that we addressed that. We weren't working with them. We were working with K-Freeze. And it shows, you know, those kind of mistakes happen whenever we put too much stuff on people unprepared for the task.
So,
I will yield.
thank you, Sarah. One, I want to voice my appreciation that it's taken into consideration, this proposal. What planning and zoning has been asking for quite a while now. That's a part of it, that the idea of reducing to 5 members for them. Also, I really like the idea of 1-year terms for all the other boards, because what that does is in discussion with citizens, when I ask volunteers or people who are interested in volunteering for the city for committees, it's often the 2-year mark that's been a little bit of a hiccup, where if I was being able to reach out to volunteers and go, hey, it's a 1-year term, they go, that I can do. But like, it's a less commitment. So I think we'd actually end up with more volunteers. And we've had kind of a consistent, not wane of volunteers, but we came shooting out of the gates and everyone was up, we had a long list of volunteers to choose from. And now it's kind of that excitement of all that availability is kind of waning a little bit. So I think removing the alternates will help, as well as the 1-year terms is something I strongly support. And I do want to kind of touch on.
Can I ask you a question? When I'm talking about, you said 1-year terms on the other one, you're saying that P and Z.
No, not that one.
Multi-year terms for P and Z.
Yes, that's phase 2. We're talking about the membership.
Right.
Reducing it to 5. They've been talking about that
Right.
for a while. When it comes to the I&M panel, I think the solution that Councilmember Hines has proposed, and something I would support, definitely is a subcommittee of these very same people, but it's just not in a very ordinance. It's not an ordinance. It's not a law that creates this subcommittee. It's council creating the subcommittee, which is pretty much the same thing.
You actually saw my thunder.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, you made the amendment, because the chair of I&M, Jose Tormo, came in, sat down in the office and said, is it your intention to disband I&M? And I said, what is being considered by the council is a reduction in committees, including I&M, but not a reduction in the need for expertise. So it wouldn't be a TOMA regulated, ordained thing, but, we would still, and it's not just I&M. I mean, it's, like if parks and trees merge, both of those committees are the ones that, sort of keep their members. So there's gonna be a few people that are not gonna be able to stay on that committee. But we're gonna need them in other places. Maybe they go over to community relations, maybe they become a subcommittee with Jane Little and the leaders of Woodcreek. I mean, it's like there's need for all the volunteers in different places. That was gonna be my point, is that nobody, goes away. It's not that we don't want people helping, it's just that there is a there is a lot of work that goes behind maintaining an official advisory body to the council, including staff time and everything. If you've got ad hoc committees for, whatever function, they don't have to post agendas, they don't have to record their meetings. All they have to do is help and then report back to the council with their findings. It's like, so that was the thought behind that. That's what like Jose, and I don't know whether he was upset or understood or what when he left, but that was the discussion.
And remember, tonight is literally just moving forward to authorize Stan Springerly to draft these ordinances for this purpose. All of this would have to come back to us for a final vote. And it would have these key components as outlined. He already has drafts that I've prepared to sort of essentially work from. I'd be willing to work with you and have meetings to sort of explain. We had track changes in them, and then we undid them because we were hoping to be able to get them to be able to pass, so that essentially what we're really looking at is in January, we're having a retreat. And so we wanted to be able to have a clear representation of what those advisory boards would look like and not waste people's time, right? So I think at this point, we just would be inviting everyone, and with the knowledge that those memberships might be condensed, and it just makes it a little messier. We were hoping to be able to kind of button this up at the end of this year. It's not gonna happen now, so this all has to come back.
So we're voting to authorize our city attorney to continue to work on the ordinances and bring them back, and that, use whatever council or staff help that they need to, better understand what the directions.
It's really the authorization of the expenditure. Council needed to get on a consensus that we wanted to move in this direction collectively before we continue to ask legal to spend significant money. Because it's not gonna be 1 hour of work, like putting something in ordinance format it's going to be more hours of work reviewing and.
It involves a policy decision, and that's why legal needed to confirm consensus by the body to continue to work on it. And then the only other two little, I had added the consensus like for that purpose because it's for policy. And then on the reduce the restrictiveness of open meetings, I think that language works for purposes of this initiative. I just wanted to clarify, because the way that reads to me legally, it's like you're preempting the Texas legislature. What you really mean is you're clarifying policy for the committees, the ad hoc working groups that may not have to post, more citizen groups, just to make sure that we're not overburdening the city working groups and committees with regulatory requirements that are overly burdensome.
Yeah.
And then also I would just note that it may not just be ordinances, there may be some resolutions as well for those types of
policy matters.
Right. So in other words, it wouldn't be codified or in a formal ordinance, but it would be more of a resolution or minute order in the future agenda. But we can work to have this on when is your retreat?
15th of January. And the next meeting is January 8th.
Okay, so January 8th, yeah, would be the target to bring this back.
And some back history too, when we first brought this to Charlie Zach from Denton Navarro, he was like, you need an ordinance for each of these. So that's what we did. And then in working with Mr. Springley, it was like, well, we could actually probably combine, you have to combine some of this because of the way the language works. And so once Charlie never got it in front of him, like the full scope of what we were trying to do. But once they got it, they were like, oh, okay, we need a little bit more time with this. So that's what we're authorizing, is the attorneys getting more time. Do you feel like we need to amend any of the language, or are you okay with, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you clarify, this will end liaisons.
Yeah,
Eventually it will, that would be one of the resolutions that would come forward because there's 5 of us and there would only be 3 committees. So it would end, there is a resolution to formally end council liaisons. That doesn't mean that we couldn't still have that. It just means that we're not obligating, we're not obligating all council members to serve in that capacity as being, just you're a councilor, now you're a liaison, right? That's what the policy says. This would change that. It could open it. So if you wanted to liaison something, we could write a new policy that allows something like that. But right now, it's just the mayor would do it all. And the reason we are trending that direction is because of the disjointed communication that's going on. Trying to get communication unified in a central line and hub. Trying that again, because like I said, the liaisons only worked so hard as the liaisons worked, right?
yeah, I've given it a lot of thought because, the liaison thing was sort of controversial. I mean, I wanted it and not everybody else did. And I sort of,
I love that she just looks at me.
oh, I was looking right at you. No, I mean, there was, good discussion about it. We decided to go ahead with it. It was marginally successful. I can only say that. And if I had to explain the 3-legged stool one more time, I was going to stick it somewhere, all 3 legs. And so anyway, so I'm, it's like, it was a valiant effort. It was a good experiment. It didn't work perfectly. And if the mayor becomes like the liaison, to the committees, just somebody to work with and talk to, that's fine. But also the mayor has the authority to delegate, that responsibility for specific, like for instance, Russell was a member of PARK, so hey, would you like to be, do you want to be liaison? So I could delegate that, correct? I mean, there wouldn't be anything against.
It's always best to have formal policy outlining everything, but yes, you could. The other key component of the liaisons is that, there was complaints about council members influencing advisory boards too much, and whether that was founded or unfounded, right? It came up. The other thing is council, it binds council members to supporting things from their boards that maybe they don't necessarily support, or bringing things on their behalf that they want to vote down, but, it puts you in a weird spot, and, so the mayor doesn't have that vote component. So they can advocate, they can, promote and give opinion, but they're not sitting here going, gosh, if I don't vote for this, I look like a real jerk, right? Different pressures.
I thought,
I think of everything.
I'm sorry to laugh.
okay, so we're good with this one, vote,
Yeah, who was the second?
Chris?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, so the motion is to refer this, back to legal counsel for more work on the ordinances and resolutions. And I'm sorry that I got the wording wrong. This is the only thing I remember saying.
It was very close, substantial compliance.
So, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
I
All opposed? Thank you very much. All right. Council consideration for the next regular council meeting, January 8th.
Well, hopefully that packet. If there's anything that needs to come back on the Creekside bathroom,
Yeah.
that would be an opportunity. I would love a report from what's submitted to Prozac from y'all. You know what I mean? Because our newly formed ad hoc committee of Russell, Scott, Chris Grummert, and Mayor Rasco. Y'all are charged with submitting something to the county. It would be cool to have those documents reported back to us visually. And maybe even a response from the county if Mr. Shell is up to it. But I feel like there was something else
well, you addressed it with the because I was thinking of.
Yeah, right.
Rainwater.
Maybe the city secretary, we're gonna have a special meeting
Yeah.
next week on that, but there might be removing the stipend from Ms. Parker. Should the city secretary, we need to put a definite timeline on that.
Yeah, we discussed that,
We'll discuss it to some degree, yes.
but we can bring that back.
Mayor Rasco, would it be appropriate to have maybe more of a report than an agenda item regards, the relaunch of Neighbor to Neighbor?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, we have a. All right, so anything else, I mean, that. Any objections to any of these? So we need y'all to go ahead and submit. And have other things to submit. So announcements, I've got a couple. One is, we do want to call a special meeting of the council for Monday. This coming Monday, what was that? 16th. But 6 o'clock. 6 p.m. Especially for the purpose of bringing back that resolution on the city secretary. So please mark the calendar and plan to attend. It's important that we have everyone here. Yeah, January 16th, and we'll get the agenda out to you, so we'll get that put together. Certainly before Friday, before Friday afternoon, so.
No, it has to be tomorrow.
Well, I mean, we'll have,
The 72-hour window for a Monday meeting is like tomorrow, right?
no, Friday at 6 o'clock, right?
Weekends count?
Yeah,
For posting.
yeah, you can post Friday at 6, but
Okay, I guess not.
I would prefer to get it done.
Oh, no, I would too.
Yeah.
And I was gonna be out of town, I was gonna be in Austin all day tomorrow, and I'm not anymore. So I got my work cut out for me. And thank you, Sam, good. To remind everybody about the holiday party, the Woodcreek Appreciation Party at, Leaning Pear. What are you pointing? Are you party? No, I mean, it's council, and I mean, just announcing it for council and staff and families. Leaning Pear, 5:30.
He has to announce it, and we actually, don't we have to post that? We have to post it.
Not,
No, 'cause it's social.
ceremony.
Are you sure? Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. What I'm meaning to say is previous legal advice said that anytime we anticipate a quorum of people showing up somewhere, even social, that we should post it.
If there's the risk of discussion of public business, I would post it as a ceremonial thing, but there's no authority to take action. Yeah, it's good to post it, sure.
I mean, we can put it on the board.
Do you have
Yeah.
a social function posting?
We have the board, that's our like legal one, and then we have social media. I'm not saying we broadcast we're doing it, but I believe that we would be best to put it on the board.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, I think when we receive that advice, it usually was like town halls where physical.
It was a party at his house.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where it came up, and
The issue there is that, you know, that you're making it an open invite.
Right.
You have a stranger show up, technically.
We're not paying for
No, and there's no obligation.
I think we
It's a
should just-
social function.
yeah, put it on the calendar as a
Council and staff.
appreciation event. If a public member showed up, whatever, but,
There's no action to be taken.
Yeah.
There's no, interaction that really needs.
No
to
business
occur.
discussion.
but yeah, we were given that advice because we had a campaign event and there were gonna be multiple members of council there at the time, so.
Well, I remember reading though,
I do too.
that if it's a purely social function and people showed up, that didn't really count.
As
I guess-
long
No,
as there's no discussion.
As long as there was no
If
discussion.
people just show up,
We can discuss past this.
it's
It's
not,
not a government
Function,
meeting.
yeah.
Because
but this
there's
is,
no discussion, you have to have discussion of public business under the jurisdiction of the body for it to become a government meeting. It's a social function. So, you know, my advice is if you believe you can go to a social function and not discuss meeting the business that comes before the council,
This
then you don't have to post. But it is prudent to post. I mean.
We'll post something. I don't know what the wording would be, but I'll.
Just say,
Council and staff appreciation.
yeah, sir, yeah, different event, and then it's on the calendar, it's on the board, nobody can say we didn't post it. Because to me, the difference is an open invite to a social event and people just happen to show up versus what this is a clearly governmental function and event where
Yeah.
most of council is anticipated.
Yeah, and there's some wisdom in that, because what if somebody takes a picture of a group of 3 or 4 and says, oh, look, they're all together and they didn't post, so, yeah, you just inoculate yourself and take it off.
Just, it's like belt and suspenders. Okay, so anyway, 5:30 at Lady Fair. And so, the one thing is, the city's picking up food, but we can't pick up alcohol. So, there'll be a little bit of a surprise there, but plan to cover your own, and it ain't BYOB, it's the restaurants. And then don't forget the January 15th retreat at Camp Young Judea, and that is basically, 8 to 5. It's all day. We'll close the office for the most part. We might have somebody, but maybe not. And everybody's invited. We're invited. Last year it was council and staff, and the board chairs came at lunch and then stayed for the afternoon. For this one, we're bringing everybody, including the members of the boards, are going to be invited for the whole thing. And it's going to be focused on how we work together, how our city functions, and how that relates to what we all do, including the advisory board member. Some workshop on communication skills, and then the last half of the day is built around work sessions. So about 30 minutes, talk about this topic, then you'll go to another room and have 30 minutes talking about another topic, then 30 minutes talking about another topic, and then we come back and report out on those sessions. So the 15th of January, consider it mandatory. I mean, if you're already scheduled to be out of town, then it is what it is, but do mark your calendar and do it then. So, any other announcements? If not, I would like a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Thanks, we're out. I've got it, it's 9:18. So very much. Russell?
You're in trouble? You're still on?